Je vous invite à aller aux différents micros. Vous avez des micros des deux côtés, soit pour des commentaires, soit pour des questions qui peuvent être adressées à l'un ou à l'autre ou à l'ensemble ou aux trois intervenants du même coup. Et donc, on a un peu de temps devant nous. C'est rare et donc il faudrait en profiter pour vraiment interroger nos trois intervenants. Deux micros, un à droite, un à gauche. Je sais que généralement, on a plusieurs intervenants. Je regarde des gens comme John Peters qui interviennent tout le temps, Peter Fairbrother qui pose souvent des questions, Grégard, généralement, qui a toujours une bonne question qu'il va pouvoir poser. Je regarde Gerhardt aussi, qui a beaucoup travaillé sur la question du revenu Universal Basic Income, qui pourrait sûrement tirer une ficelle de leur manche pour venir poser des questions. Sinon, je vais me lancer, au risque de poser une question un peu banale, mais si vous aviez, parce que vous avez bien identifié les limites en ce moment des institutions du travail qui ont de la difficulté à encadrer les changements en cours, si vous aviez à identifier, Judy, tu as déjà parlé du revenu minimum garanti. Peter, tu nous invites plutôt à aller du côté de la politique et Dominique, si j'ai bien saisi, tu nous invites aussi à aller vers une autre forme de régulation pour essayer de réguler les nouvelles formes de travail à travers des interventions étatiques. Si vous pouviez, parce que vous avez quelques minutes, développer un peu plus sur ces différentes formes que vous voyez émerger en termes d'expérimentation et quel pourrait être le rôle des différents acteurs, que ce soit l'État. Est-ce que les syndicats sont encore pertinents? Est-ce qu'ils peuvent encore agir? Est-ce qu'il faut aller du côté davantage des ONG? Ou est-ce qu'il faut aller plutôt, Peter suggère davantage le politique, et si on parle du politique, est-ce que c'est le politique au niveau local, c'est-à-dire au niveau municipal, au niveau davantage méséo ou au niveau national? Comment vous voyez les actions qui doivent être entreprises pour essayer de trouver des nouvelles formes d'expérimentation pour réguler les nouvelles formes de travail et les anciennes formes de travail, parce que les deux subsistent? I would like you to start.
Can you? Okay, great. Thank you. Universal basic income. I mean, as if the solution to the problem of what's going to happen with work is moving from employment to a universal basic income and expanding the definition of employee to deal with gig workers on platforms. Universal basic income, it's good to have general, inclusive systems. But a universal basic income doesn't deal with the problems of funding. How do you fund it? You need public services as well as a universal basic income, and you need to protect people who are at work as well. So it's not a panacea. So the debate around it misses, I think, the key issues, which is how do you fund it and at what level? It can be funded very low, and it can be a form of basically wage subsidy, or it can actually be a good system. In Canada, we dealt with it. The McDonald Commission, remember, touted a universal basic income because of dislocations that were going to be caused by the change from a manufacturing to a service sector. It was a downward push. So to see this as the solution seems to me besides the point. The problem is, how do you develop coalitions that you can actually generate redistributive taxes? That seems to be the key problem. And then that means, how do you tax finance capital, and how do you tax platform-mediated work? Well, in order to do that, you need multinational arrangements that are not accountable to capital, but to people. In order for them to be accountable to people, you need robust democratic systems that are not designed to actually scapegoat people who are different. So it seems to me that what we have to start confronting are those basic fault lines at the center. And I'm very disappointed. I've come back. I fled Britain because of Brexit, and I returned to Doug Ford in Ontario, here in Quebec, and I just go, oh my God, there is no place that I can go. It's the same problem. The designed features of social policies do not confront these. Yes, I think it would be good to have a non-mean tested system, but the majority of people are in employment, and we have to deal with that now, and we have to find ways to make employment good and decent, provide good public services, and address people who are engaged in important and valuable work which is not paid. But the UBI as a solution begs all the serious questions, in my view. Thanks.
Oui, moi j'étais très d'accord avec la première présentation de Jenny sur les questions extrêmement générales de financiarisation du capitalisme et la nécessité en effet de réglementer les folies du capitalisme financier. On voit bien que même aujourd'hui les institutions internationales comme le FMI ou la Banque mondiale commencent à dire qu'il faut faire quelque chose. Souvenez-vous de la fameuse note de 2016 qui a été reconduite en 2017, le département de la recherche du FMI, qui disait qu'on avait été beaucoup trop loin en matière de libéralisation du contrôle des capitaux et de politique d'austérité. Donc il y a vraiment des choses à faire en tout premier de ce côté-là, parce que sinon le monde du travail sera toujours sous la menace des flux financiers, des capitaux financiers qui s'amuseront à aller et venir. Deuxièmement, sur le revenu universel. Moi, j'ai toujours été méfiante vis-à-vis du revenu universel parce qu'il me semble que c'est une position de défaite alors qu'on peut très bien continuer. On a besoin de travail et donc on peut continuer à redistribuer le travail et à bien protéger le travail. Et je suis un peu de l'ancienne école, c'est-à-dire je pense que le salariat, c'est vraiment une invention absolument essentielle, qu'aujourd'hui on n'a rien de mieux, que tout ce qu'on nous propose à côté ou en dehors du salariat est une illusion. Peut-être qu'en soi, ce serait très bien, en effet, d'avoir beaucoup de travail indépendant, également très bien protégé, mais ça n'est pas le cas aujourd'hui. Donc, il faut absolument essayer de réintégrer dans le salariat l'ensemble des travailleurs qui, aujourd'hui, en sont exclus. Les syndicats sont évidemment extrêmement nécessaires, mais pour l'instant, dans ces nouveaux endroits, ils sont dépassés. Donc, il faut absolument aider dans ces endroits à ce que se reconstituent des syndicats, ce qui n'est pas toujours aisé. Et puis, à mon avis, il y a une institution qui est absolument essentielle et qui, mais Peter l'a bien montré, hein, c'est l'Organisation internationale du travail. C'est sur elle qu'il faudrait compter. Ce serait à elle de mettre en place les réglementations internationales nécessaires. Mais aujourd'hui, du fait de son tripartisme et de on le voit bien sur les slides qu'a montré Peter, voilà, ça n'est plus possible d'obtenir une avancée de la part de l'OIT. Or, c'est vraiment l'organisation centrale.
There's just a couple of points, really. I think there's, in terms of our research and the work that we do as groups of scholars, I mean, one of the great things about the department I work now in Bristol as a kind of a social science school is that we get much more involved with lawyers and various other people who can actually look at the law and talk about the way in which that might be interpreted, which is, as kind of labour scholars, we often kind of overlook. I think we also need to think about, I mean, I know I'm making a bit of a joke about this, but actually assuming that employers are menaces, that they are deliberately going out to do these things. So when you design laws, thinking about the worst case scenario, how could somebody exploit this if they were going to be a real bastard, you know? And then thinking about that. And then I think for the political process, I think it's really important that that you know, the organisations that we work with, trade unions, NGOs, other groups, have a better understanding of the market, the nature of the market, how it's changing, how new business models emerge in those markets, and then how we can best influence policymakers as well. And one of the frustrations of, for example, dealing with the European Commission is that it's not one commission, and you have people in DG employment, for example, who understand the issues that we're talking about. you then have people in DG competition who just think the market is the solution to everything. So it's a really, there's a lot of important kind of political work that needs to be done in those institutions in terms of how we get our ideas across and how we convince people of these ideas, because it might seem to common sense to us, but for a lot of people, they're either refusing to listen or sometimes you can't work out just exactly what it is that's motivating them.
Thank you. On a une question.
Well, since Christian shamed me, I'm John Peters, so I guess I'll ask a question, although oddly enough, it won't be, as some of you might know me, a question about financialization, but about the environment. So it's more a Peter Fairbrother question, but so I'll ask it on Peter's behalf. Peter. I thought the presentations were great. I think, trying to set out the big challenges that we face means tackling global capitalism. It means tackling the nature of how it's changed, how it has become financialized, how it has become sort of disembodied or become phantom firms, because this has huge consequences on the nature of how we get jobs. It has huge consequences about whether or not we get paid for those jobs. It has huge consequences about whether we can actually live our lives and have families, because we're being paid crap kinds of wages. And I think those are some of the huge kinds of questions. And I really enjoyed and I was impressed with how you so quickly kind of addressed those things. But there's the other big elephant, or perhaps it's not an elephant, it's a cloud, it's a storm, it's a hurricane, it's a typhoon, it's waves, it's tsunamis, it's global climate change. And just a couple of weeks ago, the IPCC just came out and said, guess what? If you weren't depressed enough, you have 12 years to do something about global climate change before the storms hit the fan. And I'm wondering, looking at the program, but also in terms of your discussions, climate change didn't come up. But yet globalization and financialization is all about pushing oil resource industries. It's all about using more oil, and it's all about, in some sense, completely ignoring the fact that our carbon emissions are going up. What's the role for unions in this? What's the role for politics in this? What's the role for creating a new kind of system? People, I think, today are faced with this problems. Look, we have all this low-wage work. We have unemployment we can't think about. But yet, if we're going to address that, it's going to mean addressing an entire new kind of economic model, one about degrowth and sustainability. How do we deal with some of those kinds of tensions? How can we address global climate change in this kind of situation of globalized work and where people are under tremendous pressures and unions are under tremendous pressures?
Est-ce qu'on prend les trois questions? Oui. We'll take the three questions and then you can answer.
Hi, I'm Kai. I am a PhD hopeful, and I think jumping on your question there, global climate change has been the first complex problem that was addressed at a multilateral level. And I think the future of work and these new emergent business models, platforms, can, especially on a policy discussion view, can definitely learn from what have won within climate change negotiations. What type of parallel have you seen potentially that we can maybe learn from the gains that have been done within the IPCC process or within the framework agreement? And secondly, here in Montreal, it's a big AI hub, right? And then, the sister university here, UDM, it's a big global leader in that field. How can we cross over in terms of some of the discussions here and say workers' voices have to be part of that larger conversation in how Canada, how Montreal, and how this new sector is going to be transforming the daily lives of many Canadians?
Gregor Marie, thanks very much. You've really cheered us up. That's what we wanted in talking about fault lines. So first I'll add on to John Peters, but on a different theme, which Judy raised, but you're all responsible because we'll hold Peter responsible for Brexit and everything else that's happening in the UK since he moved from Wales over into England. Dominique has a lot to account for in France, and Judy will hold her responsible for Ontario, even though she just came back. What do you do in constructing a program about working class and precarious class disaffection? And I think of a very good Canadian union like Unifor, which has worked very hard on lots of these issues, and then they say, well, in the Ontario election, probably 40% of our members voted for Doug Ford. I'm picking that out of the air, but it's not inaccurate. So how do you construct something which deconstructs that discourse and creates the positive counter-narrative that you want to construct? And I realize it's very easy to throw this to you. It's not easy because you've been looking at a lot of other aspects, but I think that we have to be able to tackle that, and that's maybe part of a larger political program with a number of planks that we can think of. But any shafts of light coming through this darkness of the fault lines are welcome. And then, of course, there's going to be a lot of them through the program, through the rest of the conference, because people are working on this in a lot of detailed ways. But your ideas would be very welcome.
Who wants to go first? Would you take the same order? You want to go up first, Judy, or?
Oh, sure, I'll go first. Thank you. These are really important questions. I think climate change is really significant. I think there is a crisis of financialized capitalism that it will eat itself. And it's one of the three crises that I think is really important. But I think that we have to deal with the political crisis before we can deal with the climate change crisis. And I think one of the things that it's really important, we can always pick on certain kinds of sectors as being the bad sectors, but actually computers take a lot of energy. If you think about how much energy goes into servers, they're a very dirty form of engagement with the world. So they're not a solution. So we need to kind of actually understand how significant our use of energy is and how we're going to deal with this. But I think before we can actually address this, we need to deal with the political question. And I agree there is a problem around working class disaffection, but I am not surprised that Unifor's members would have voted for Doug Ford. And I am interested in seeing what kinds of unions are dealing with the kind of political engagement at the shop floor level. Unifor used to be CAW, and it's expanded massively, and it's cut itself away from the Canadian Labour Congress, and it has an ambivalent relationship. In many ways, it's very successful, but it is ambivalent. So we need to, I think, start thinking about how you bring these things into your daily interaction on shop floor kinds of politics. I mean, and needing to think better about it. I was away from Canada when there was the huge foo-fara around our temporary foreign workers program, and the Harper government, after ratcheting it up, closed it way down. But the whole language that had led up to it was a form of labor protectionism. And people weren't dealing with that early enough, I think, within the labor movement. It was very, in certain sectors, very much keep them out and protect us. And it was a labor protectionist position. Understandably, short-termism, but really bad in the long term. You can't cut people out of things like that. And the unions, big unions, were not good on this stuff. And they should be chastised for it, because it foments that kind of othering and this notion that somehow you have an entitlement because you happen to be of that privileged class. We're all vulnerable now. And we need to actually think of how we talk about these solidarity bases rather than talking about protecting. How we talk to people about declining standards of living. People are only maintaining their standard of living through huge debt, which then feeds financialization. How do we do this? I'm not sure, but it seems to me we need to actually be talking about these kinds of difficult things, dealing with notions of European and white supremacy, which are clearly part of this, and have to be called out in a way that makes us have unpleasant conversations in classrooms and at dinner tables and on buses and in airplanes when racist passengers attack vulnerable elderly women who happen to be black. So I don't know, maybe we need a more fractious and contentious politics. More demos, more voting. Get young people voting, really. They should be ashamed.
Dominique?
Oui, moi je suis ravie du... Pardon. Je suis ravie du tour que prend la discussion et le fait qu'on tienne ensemble les deux questions écologiques et sociales, parce que c'est absolument nécessaire. En ce moment, on est en train de les traiter de façon différente et on réfléchit sur la question de l'automatisation sans du tout voir en effet que c'est très coûteux en énergie et de toute façon, on ne pourra pas continuer comme ça. Donc je trouve ça fantastique. Moi, je travaille depuis la fin des années 90 à peu près sur la question de la croissance et de notre addiction à la croissance. Et bon, il y a un tabou autour de la croissance, hein, quand vous dites que vous remettez en cause à la fois l'indicateur, le taux de croissance du PIB, pour montrer que cet indicateur est extrêmement mauvais, extrêmement limité, qu'il ne tient pas compte de tas de choses absolument nécessaires. Janice parlait de reproduction de la société. Notre PIB, il ne tient absolument pas compte de toute une série d'activités qui sont absolument indispensables à la reproduction de notre société. Le travail domestique, une partie du loisir, le bénévolat, etc. Mais il a des tas d'autres inconvénients, et notamment le fait qu'on voit bien aujourd'hui que c'est la somme de valeur ajoutée, le PIB, et il ne nous montre absolument pas les évolutions des patrimoines critiques que l'on mobilise pour réaliser la production, c'est-à-dire le patrimoine naturel, voire le patrimoine social. Donc voilà, moi je travaille là-dessus depuis longtemps. C'est à la fois admis, maintenant dans tous les manuels de terminale, vous avez la critique de l'indicateur PIB, mais il ne s'ensuit rien. C'est-à-dire qu'on ne remet jamais en cause notre addiction, non pas seulement à l'indicateur, mais à la croissance en tant que telle. Et on voit bien que ce qui s'est passé ces dernières années, quand il y a eu, après la crise de 2008, eh bien on a eu moins d'émissions de gaz à effet de serre. Le lien est évident entre ce qui s'est passé, notamment dans ce que nous appelons les 30 glorieuses. Les 30 glorieuses, ça a été à la fois un moment fantastique d'amélioration des conditions de vie, mais en même temps le moment où on n'a jamais craché autant de gaz à effet de serre dans l'atmosphère. Donc on est obligé de se dire qu'il va falloir mettre en place une grande bifurcation, rapidement, urgemment, un changement absolument radical dans lequel il faudra qu'on ait à la fois une autre représentation des relations entre humains et nature, l'usage de nouveaux indicateurs, moi je plaide pour ça depuis 15 ans, c'est-à-dire qu'à la place du PIB ou en complément du PIB, on utilise tout simplement l'empreinte carbone et par exemple un indice de santé sociale pour mesurer les inégalités. Et donc il faut qu'on aille très très vite vers une société post-croissance. Et il me semble que cette société post-croissance, c'est en même temps une société qui peut être du travail décent. Et que toute la question, ça va être de parvenir justement à lier les deux. Comment on traite de conserve la question écologique et la question sociale? Il y a par exemple la Confédération syndicale internationale qui parle depuis assez longtemps de transition juste. Ça veut dire que cette bifurcation, il va falloir l'accompagner d'énormes d'investissements massifs, à la fois dans la transition écologique. La transition écologique, elle va créer des emplois, mais il faudra de la solidarité pour qu'en effet, ce ne soient pas toujours les mêmes qui payent. Voilà, donc je trouve que là, on est vraiment au centre du sujet qu'on a à traiter aujourd'hui.
Peter?
Yeah, just, I suppose, I'll try and be quick here. I think it's really important at the kind of global level when you have these rules to kind of get those rules right. That's really important. Just to give you one example, and this is the point about people being disembedded was mentioned. In the discussions that we've had about road haulage workers in Europe, companies will, a Dutch company might be registered in Slovakia, hire drivers from Bulgaria, and then do deliveries between Germany and Denmark. And these people are away from home for up to 3 months. They then get 2 weeks to go back, and then they're back for 3 months. They live in the cabs, they eat in the cabs. So under the new rules, we've changed the duration that people can work before they get a journey home. And we have a debate in the European Parliament. I was there in the Economic and Social Committee and the Transport Committee. Where is home? Is the home where the company's registered, or the home where the company is actually based? Is it the Netherlands? Is it, No, it's the worker's home. Come on. And so, this idea that, so it's really important to get these kind of things right at that level. But I think we have more impact at a kind of a local level. So, for example, we talk about climate change. It's a big issue in terms of transport and pollution, for example, from transport. So we've done lots of work with local transport operators, again, to try and improve mobility, access to services. If you change public service obligations, for example, at what time of day do you provide bus services during the rush hour? When do, for example, people with, carers with small children, when do they use buses? It's not during rush hour. So if you change public service obligations, you deny citizens access to those services. So it's clearly possible to build all kinds of alliances at a local level between workers, between different communities and different groups, and try and embed in that some of the issues around sustainability and some of those issues. So I think at the kind of national level, at the international level, just trying to get some of the rules right to stop people doing the nasty things at the local level. And then at the local level, we're on a more kind of progressive agenda to try and improve things, whereas at the kind of international level, it's more focused on just trying to stop people doing stupid things.
Merci. On va arriver, je crois que si on prend d'autres questions, on va être trop décalé dans le temps. Je suis vraiment désolé, Tania, parce que le temps est très, très serré. Pour ceux et celles que c'est la première fois qu'ils viennent ici, vous regarderez bien comme il faut. C'est un vrai labyrinthe pour se retrouver à HEC. Donc, il y a des gens avec des cocardes rouges qui vont pouvoir vous guider. Avant de quitter, s'il vous plaît, je voudrais qu'on remercie nos 3 présentateurs. Vraiment, c'était fantastique.